and welcome to the official podcast of JustDubs Online, the JustDubs cast, in which you listen to us spout a load of nonsense for an hour and immediately question your life decisions. I'm your host and friendly neighborhood news and media moderator, BaconMan8910, and joining me today is my good friend Znelson.
Hey.
And my fellow news and media moderator, Mark Denn.
Hey.
So, this is going to be the Halloween episode. Partly because it's in October, partly because I took forever to record this, and it's actually going up on Halloween Day. So, you can take that, you can take the Halloween theme as intentional or coincidental, depending on how you look at it. But, to anyone listening, I am actually really sorry that this has taken so long this month to get recorded. Shouldn't be an issue in the future. I expect the next several ones to be on time, and I will try to be a little more careful with my schedule in the future to make sure that gets done. So with that out of the way, let's get on with the show. Let's jump right into site news, actually. If I remember, I actually might put a little sound effect here, like, I don't know, something Halloween-y. If not, I'm going to edit around this so I don't sound like an idiot. Site news. We actually have some new staff members on board now, starting with DeadSeed1, who is our new news and media moderator, joining the likes of myself and Mark.
Yeah.
We also have Rogue Camo, who have joined our social media team, and will be helping Miss Elegant Serenity with Facebook, Twitter, and I guess any other social media platform we're on. I think that's it. I think we have a YouTube, and aside from that, there's not a lot going on.
That reminds me,
in terms of our social media.
They may not see it, but I do post a lot on. I am part of the social media team for Facebook too. So.
That's right. You do help out with that. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, I actually noticed because I do like us on Facebook, which you should too. I do notice that you post several articles and stuff.
Yeah.
Also in site news, we have some events going on, and by the time this goes up, these events will probably be ending. So I'm really sorry about that. But this year we've had a Spooktober elimination game. If you don't know what our elimination games we nominate various characters from anime depending on a certain theme. So this month's theme was horror and supernatural. So we would nominate characters from those genres, and people would vote in a tournament-style system that for who they thought was the best of that genre. I'm not sure who's going to win this one. All of the people who I actually wanted to win have been eliminated. I was kind of gunning for Yuno Gasai to win, and she lost like several rounds ago, and so I'm pretty sad now.
Yeah, to be honest, she's my favorite character, all-time favorite character. If she could, she'd be one of my many plethora of waifus.
She'd be one of your waifus?
Yeah.
Well, see, I have to say, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second, so listeners, I hope you're not too excited about the news. I have to say, like, as much as I like Yuno, you couldn't have her as part of, like, a harem or anything.
No.
Because she would just murder everyone else.
Yeah. It's just that, like, it was just one of the most amazing character developments I've ever seen, and so I just took that on and like she was my like first waifu that I ever accepted in.
Yeah. I think if you're gonna have a waifu, if Yuno's gonna be your waifu, she has to be your only waifu.
Yeah.
Which we'll actually talk about Mirai Nikki here in a bit, because I actually kind of want to talk about it. But yeah, I absolutely love the anime, and I do love Yuno as a character. So it's a shame that she lost the game, but, you know, whatever. Yeah. I guess my opinion doesn't count for much.
I think she's more psychological than horror, so, I mean, I can see how she could get voted out pretty easily.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually got an opinion on that, which I will go over as soon as I finish the news. So moving on, we have also the Flaming Pumpkin game. Don't know who's going to win that. It's basically hot potato for 4 members. Right now, myself, Mafia Cal, Negi Springfield, and Vladnix, I believe, are the only ones left. I could be wrong, and by the time you're hearing this, there will probably be a winner, and if not, there will probably be only like 2 people left. One of them will probably not be me.
We also have yourself out yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Like last year, what happened? It came down to myself and Miss Elegant Serenity, and we went at it like crazy. Like I was checking my phone during work to make sure that I won, because I get overly competitive about the stupidest things, and my wife is like, "You are such a child." And I really am sometimes. And so I was checking my phone constantly, and we were just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until the time I got home and actually went to bed. And so I'm up late at night, and we're still going on. I haven't gone to bed yet because I want to win. And so I'm like, it's so late. I am so tired. I'm just going to make one more post, and I'm going to hope that I win. And you know what happened? Ella posted after me, and I didn't say anything. I just made another post. Ella posted after me and was like, "This is my last post. I'm not posting again. If I win, that's great. If not, whatever. I'm going to bed." I'm like, no! Just one more, and I would have won! So, I have to forever live with that. I'm still finding ways to cope. Mostly drinking, but you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't win a hot potato contest when I only sign in like once every 2 weeks. So.
Right. Speaking of dealing with my problems with drinking, we also have Oktoberfest going on, which isn't necessarily an event, but we have a forum thread in which we're sharing the various spirits that we're enjoying. We also have a pumpkin carving contest. That's honestly pretty self-explanatory. The review contest that we have going on for horror and supernatural anime, and also a costume contest, I believe, are going to be judged by the staff members. So, I probably by Halloween night will have come up with a winner for this. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure whoever wins these contests will win a JustDubs mousepad.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is actually, I believe, a new item. Yeah, I think it's a new item that we have in our store, and the first ones are going out to the winners of these contests. And I've seen them; they actually look pretty good. And this is coming from someone who hates mousepads. This is a weird little quirk of mine. I hate mousepads, and I wish they would all die in a fire.
I absolutely need them, but
yes,
I also...
they're essential to my life.
Yeah.
And that concludes our site news. So now we can actually get on with the show. Speaking of mousepads, I actually have a StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty mousepad. I love it because it's really cool and it has Kerrigan and Zeratul on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really cool, and it's a really nice mousepad. But when I ordered it, I didn't expect it to be as big as it is. It's a gaming mousepad, so it is giant. Like, seriously, it's like twice the size of a regular mousepad, I guess, so that you don't have to do the whole thing where you pick up your mouse and move it over.
Oh,
but
honestly,
some gaming mouses are really big too.
Yeah.
The hardcore ones, massive.
At the moment, I'm using my old how to draw manga books. So
you're using your book as a mousepad?
Yes.
I mean, it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's better than what I did. I spent $40 on this thing.
I spent $15 on the mousepad I got at Walmart. It's got memory foam and like a pad at the base, so I don't like break my wrist.
See, I was half expecting you to say that you got a booby mousepad.
That's what I was thinking.
It's like that, except without the boobies.
Tape a picture over it and it should be good, right?
Right, yeah, you just print off, like, and tape her on there. Getting back to we'll start off with talking about Mirai Nikki and getting into what you were saying, Nelson, about how she falls more under psychological than horror. I would argue that those are the same thing. In that I feel like I feel like some of the best horror movies, video games, and anime that I've ever seen aren't necessarily scary in the traditional sense, but are rather very. They usually fall under the. They usually fall into the uncanny valley, or they come off as incredibly disturbing.
Yeah.
And I think that those, I think that is a much more difficult sort of horror to pull off. But when you do pull it off, for me that sticks with me more than just being scared in the moment, because that makes me think, and that gets me thinking about what was going on in that long after I've turned off the show.
Well, I believe that like psychological aspects are very pivotal in making good horror, but I believe that the feel of the entire series was not necessarily horror, as in it had quite substantial in its amount of dark themes, but it had a whole bunch of lighter moments and lighter themes as well that counterbalanced it very nice. That I feel like it leaned more towards having a psychological aspect, where it had all of the basically I would say mental angst and pain and psychological issues, while not necessarily being horror, as the series' intent wasn't to scare you.
I feel like it kind of shifted from horror to psychological as it got closer and closer to the end, and as you watched all these characters start to break down, though. That's the way I feel like it ran.
Yeah, I definitely think that watching the progression of the various characters was very disturbing in its own right, especially the progression of Yuno and Yuki.
Yeah.
Yuno starts off as kind of a crazy character. She's meant to be a yandere character.
Yeah.
And she definitely is. She's basically the yandere queen.
Yep.
But and she comes off as that from the very start, and we're all like, okay, that's fine. But as it goes on, it becomes more than that.
Yeah.
She's not just the clingy, crazy girlfriend who will, like, cut your head off for, looking at another girl or whatever.
Favorite scene, the favorite kind of set of episodes that I remember always is when she has Yuki tied down to the chair.
Right.
And that always stuck in my mind. I'd always remember that, and that, even though it was like disturbing when I first watched it, it was always my favorite part, because it just gave me that feeling like, oh god, what if I was in that situation?
Yeah, and that kind of sticks with you, and it's kind of weird because it. I'm going to try not to spoil this anime, but while also talking about it. But it comes at kind of a turning point in the anime where their relationship is starting to click a bit more, and you're thinking, okay, things are working out, and then it just takes a left turn into oh shitville.
Yeah.
And it kind of doesn't come back from there.
No, it doesn't. And then it throws in all that other stuff too, which I recommend you watch to figure it out. Which the audience should watch to figure it out if they haven't already.
Right. I would. Anytime anybody asks like to recommend good horror anime or good psychological anime, I always my first recommendation is always Mirai Nikki, because it's really good. You can also find it under the name The Future Diary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would actually say that Mirai Nikki is probably my favorite horror anime. It's really, really good. And I am going to spoil it just for a second here. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers for this, you should skip ahead about 30 seconds. Okay. One part that really did just freak me the fuck out was when they were in. It was kind of a mansion, kind of like a traditional Japanese style of mansion, and Yuno was like going to be raped.
Oh, that was that stuck in my mind too. It was like, oh god.
Yeah, that was. I was like, and Yuki, and she's like, they're playing her like screaming over like a loudspeaker, and Yuki's like hiding, and it's like, what the fuck? and all the while, like in the basement, Uryu is being tortured by the dude with the eye for a head. I can't remember what his name is for the life of me. Yes, and that was also. This was also freaking me the fuck out when he took her eye out, and you actually got to see him stick the thing into her eye and
God,
pull on it. And I'm like, I can't watch this.
He was actually my second favorite character in the whole series. The favorite character, of course, being Yuno, but
right. I mean, how could it not be Yuno?
Yeah,
I liked him because he was sort of portrayed as a villain. But then also not really in the end.
But he kind of fancies himself as a superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, they sort of made him like he was a villain that was against the protagonist, and then it turns out he's kind of not. He's more in a gray neutral area to where he's not necessarily evil, but not really good. And I liked how they represented him, and it made me sort of sad he didn't get a lot of screen time.
Yeah. Would you say that in terms of being good versus evil, he's more of a he's more in like the area that Uryu falls in?
I think he's very much like Uryu, and I probably just slaughtered her name. I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but yes, I believe he's very much in the same boat as her. And I believe that he's more for lawful, but yet vigilantism, while she would align more towards the anarchy sort of route.
So if they were D&D characters, she would be, what, maybe chaotic neutral?
I would say. And he would be, I would say, drift between true neutral with sort of law, but not really, because he doesn't obey necessarily the laws, but he does have a code of conduct he must follow.
Right. I would argue that maybe he's closer to lawful evil, because not to go off into a D&D tangent, but in the rule sets of D&D, lawful evil isn't necessarily like, Bond villain evil, but they're much more concerned with themselves than anything else. They're much more concerned with their idea of what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
Whether or not it is actually right or wrong. And I think that applies to him.
Kind of getting back to favorite horror animes. Mine, honestly, I just started watching this, but it's a really old one. My favorite it's a close running between Mirai Nikki and what's it called? Psycho Agent or whatever it's called. I forgot what it's called.
Psychopaths?
Yeah, not Psychopaths.
What?
It's older. It has really good. It's Paranoia Agent. That's what it was. They're close running because I read Paranoia Agent and I watched it, and it was a very good running anime at the time. I can't really describe it in words. It's just that you got to go out and watch it for yourself. And
yeah, actually, I just looked this up, and yeah, I recognize this one. I haven't watched it, but it's one of those that I'm like, I know I need to watch this, but I haven't got around to actually watching it.
Yeah, it's very good. I recommend you watch it, and I'd recommend you read it before you watch it, just to kind of get a little better sense of what it is.
I really need to get better about reading manga, because I don't ever read manga. I get like halfway into the first book, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Time to watch the anime.
Reading manga is probably one of my guilty pleasures, in a sense that I typically don't read the same manga as I watch animes for, as I mostly read, and it's embarrassing to say, but slice of life manga and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
my guilty pleasure is harem mangas.
Okay.
That's really just.
This has nothing to do with horror or Halloween or anything.
No.
But have you read and or watched Heaven's Lost Property?
Yep. I've watched it.
I absolutely love that anime. It was hilarious. It got really sad at the end, but it was really, really funny all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And I will empathize with you, Nelson. I do kind of like slice of life sometimes, but I like it intermingled with something else. Like, for example, I feel like Heaven's Lost Property and Toradora are both slice of life to an extent.
Yeah.
But they're intermingled with a few other genres that make them a little less, boring.
Well, Toradora is one of my favorite mangas and animes and light novels. I've pretty much read everything about it. So
another horror anime that I almost always recommend that most people might not think of as being strictly horror, but I would put it in that camp, is Psycho-Pass. Have you guys watched this yet?
I watched few episodes of it, but because I've been watching so much other stuff at the moment and reading so much other stuff, I haven't gotten to it fully.
Right. Well, I will be careful not to spoil it for you then, but without talking spoilers, I feel like if we're talking about psychological horror, I think that Psycho-Pass is firmly in that camp, and I think that the whole premise of a system in which the police no longer carry firearms, instead they carry weapons that practically think for themselves, so that the officers themselves don't have to do any thinking. If you're not familiar with Psycho-Pass, the premise is that Japan has implemented a system called the Sybil system, and what it does is it scans everybody every day throughout all of their lives with various scanners that they have on streets and shops, and the police also carry their own scanners. And these scanners determine what is known as your psychopath, which determines how likely, or not how likely you are to commit a crime, but rather how much, how capable are you of being a criminal. Basically it looks for various psychological traits and personality traits that are indicative of potential criminals, and if you exhibit those, you are forced to go to counseling, whether or not you've actually ever committed a crime, or ever will commit a crime, or ever will even think about committing a crime. And it brands you as a latent criminal, somebody who may one day become a criminal, so we should go ahead and stick them in jail or kill them so that they don't ever become one. It doesn't matter whether or not you ever actually will. And with that in mind, the antagonist of the series, of the show, the links that he goes to undermine that system, and the ways that he goes about doing it, and how the CID, the Criminal Investigation Division, go about trying to confront him and deal with this. It gets incredibly fascinating and incredibly interesting, and if you watch to about the halfway point from there on, it gets incredibly disturbing. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, just there is a part that involves somebody, making a set of pipes, like for smoking, out of somebody's bones, out of human remains, and it's
oh god.
If that sounds creepy, that's just the tip of the iceberg, and I thoroughly recommend that you go and give it a try. It's very much a thriller. It's very much a psychological horror anime, and it's also just a damn good detective anime.
When it comes to Psycho-Pass, the reason that I said that I designate a difference between psychological and horror is actually mainly due to that show. Is I saw it as not necessarily horror as in that it was psychological, as in it got you to think and it got you to analyze, not just... I feel like psychological is more getting you to think than necessarily horror preludes to, so I like to designate differences between them, and while a lot of series share them, I view Psycho-Pass more psychological, less horror, although it can scare you with how disturbing the psychological aspects get on it.
There is a show that I watched that I consider psychological but nowhere near horror, and that is a pretty recent one called Punchline, and that really gets you thinking on, okay, how does all this stuff work together, and how do they do this? But it has such a lighthearted feeling to it that you don't ever get the feeling of horror or fear in the show.
Right, and I think that if you come away, I think that in many ways that if you come away undisturbed I don't feel like you necessarily have to be frightened for something to be horror, but if you come away without having some feeling of something is wrong, it might not fall into the horror category. But that being said, I think that fear and just classifying something as horror, it's very subjective, because something that I find frightening or disturbing, you might not. I think that varies from person to person. So
yeah.
So it's hard to say that this is definitely horror and this definitely isn't.
Yeah. I looked at it this way, like if it's a really like a deep psychological one, it will really put like what are your morals that you have in your mind to the test, and really what are these characters putting out for you that go against yours, but also kind of fit in with yours. Right,
and I agree with that. And I think that that's where Psychopaths in particular really excels. There's a video game that came out recently called Soma. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
I've been watching it. I honestly want to get it, but I don't. But the reason is that just because I want it, because I've been watching multiple episodes on it, and I really love it so far.
Right. Yeah, and I watched 2 full Let's Plays of it, and I think that it was kind of marketed as a horror game. It's made by is it Frictional, I believe?
I believe, because the ones that made Amnesia, I believe.
Right, they made Penumbra, and they made Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and Machine for Pigs, which we won't talk about. But so it was it's kind of seen as the successor to those games, all of which are incredibly frightening. And if you haven't played them, I suggest that you do. But it was kind of seen as a follow-up to these games, and kind of sold as a horror anime. And in some ways, it is. But in other ways, I feel like it gets you to think. It's much more about the story, much less about
jump scares.
Being afraid. Right. I think that the whole point of the game is to get you to question your morality and how you think about things.
Mm-hmm.
And it asks a lot of hard questions about, what exactly do we consider to be human? What do we consider to be equal to us? What is sentient and what is alive?
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line from animals and machines and humans? And
it also kind of touches on what is reality itself, too.
Right.
Which I feel like is one of my favorite things, which should be implemented into games.
Yeah, and that's certainly an interesting thought. That's certainly an interesting question to pose. And if you've ever taken a philosophy class, this is one that you'll get asked a lot. I've taken several psychology classes, but I've only taken one philosophy class. And in my philosophy class, we talked about the various philosophers and what it means to say, what it means to be real, what you perceive as reality. And my philosophy teacher kind of posed the question of, how do you know that you exist? And I'm like, yeah. I don't, but I can't. But what I am perceiving as reality, I might as well just accept as reality, because it's not like I can change it. And if I can, I do not know how. So I have no way to prove to you that what I perceive as real is real, but I choose to accept that it is.
Yeah. an anime that I think that pulls it off very well too, that a lot of people may know of, is Steins Gate. Is that?
Oh yeah.
That pulls that off really well too.
Yeah, I don't think that for me at least, Steins Gate isn't horror or psychological or anything. You could argue that it falls under supernatural. I would say it's more science fiction.
Yeah.
But I think that in many ways, Steins Gate does fit our theme.
Yeah.
I would say that it would be psychological for me because of the really emotional strain you can see, and how, if you put yourself in that scenario, how would you react? Sort of psychological thinking, having to relive the same stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Right, and the fates of the characters and the way that it handles how things turn out with them is very interesting, and it kind of turns its own premise on its head, in that, sure, we've invented a time machine. Let's go and make the world the way that we want it to be. And then everything just goes to shit as a result. Spoilers, things go to shit.
Yeah. That's basically explained in the first episode.
Right. And so you spend the whole show trying to right the wrongs of you trying to right some wrongs.
Yeah.
And I think that it falls under psychological to some degree.
Yeah.
In that it makes you question right and wrong. It makes you think, if I do this is going to happen, but is saving this one thing worth saving this, and what do I have to give up in order to make sure that this is the future that I want it to be?
Yep. I feel like it runs that way too, and then I played the visual novel, and because you can choose as many different endings as you want, but it really kind of deteriorates in the visual novel as you start picking one line along what storyline you want to go along, or at least that's the way I feel personally.
Right, that's fair enough. And just sidebar, and this is somewhat of a spoiler, but if you don't want to hear it, skip ahead a few seconds. But like how Okabe ends up with redhead girl. What was her name?
Good question. I haven't watched it.
Her name or her multiple nicknames, cuz.
All of the above.
They called her Christine as a nickname quite often. She had Zombie and quite other. I can't actually pronounce her real name, but I know it.
Christine is good enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, Okabe ends up with Christine, and I was kind of surprised about that at the end. I was really expecting him and Mayuri to be a thing.
I think in the anime they more or less played her off as a sibling type relationship.
Yeah.
Less romantic, and I feel like that's why they went for that. But I can completely see how someone could see them as a couple. In fact, that's what I really wanted as well, but it just I feel like they didn't define the anime as much. And I think in the visual novels it's a lot easier to make different path lines than in animes, because look at harem animes as a good example, is they never really pick one.
Yeah.
Or if they do pick one, the other ones never really had a shot.
Right. Yeah, speaking of harem anime, have you guys seen High School DxD?
Yes.
I haven't watched the new season, but I have watched the older one.
You come there for the harem, you stay because holy crap, that fight scene was awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen the new season either. I've been waiting for it to get an English dub. I don't know if it's been dubbed yet or not. If it has, I will look it up at some point. But this also kind of falls under a theme because it's supernatural. And when I feel like this is like the harem anime, the one that everybody kind of thinks about when they think of harem.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, but I hate it so much. Like, I watch this and I'm like, I hate myself for liking this. And the reason why is because the story is, it's okay. It's passable. It's really, as far as harem anime go, it's really good. Well, as far as, other stories go, it's alright. It works. It's passable. I'm cool with that. But the main character and his harem is where I get hung up at. I can't deal with it. He's like, oh, I want to be the harem king and all this other bullshit.
Yeah.
And then when he finally gets all these girls to want to sleep with him, he won't sleep with any of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, wasn't this your goal all along?
See, it goes into the fundamental flaw that is harem anime is, even if it makes complete sense for the main character to sleep with these girls, he cannot, because then...
Yeah.
Because it then just turns into hentai.
Yeah.
Speaking of...
then the series loses its footing, I guess, would be the...
I guess so. I guess it's just stringing you along. Like, yeah, we're gonna do the thing at one point, but then they never do the thing.
They move on.
There are very few harem animes that I feel like actually pick one or get an ending.
There's one that I thoroughly enjoyed, only because he didn't pick one. He kind of this is kind of a spoiler, but he chose all of them, and it's slightly older. It's Tenchi Muyo. Tenchi Muyo pulled off the...
Never heard of it.
You haven't?
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh my god, it's like I don't know how to exactly describe it. It's a sci-fi kind of harem where he kind of goes out and meets all these people from all the different universes or from the different planets or whatever, and it just kind of like devolves into which girl should he wed, and then in almost towards the end he decides, oh, you got to marry them all.
It's like Pokemon.
Pokemon harem. Okay. No,
oh god, that's gonna happen now. You know what? It probably exists. Look it up.
I don't want to look it up because I don't want that in my search history. Even though I know I can delete it, it'll still be there. Someone will find it.
Like at that point, you're just probably on a watch list somewhere.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, I'm not being a total pervert when I say this, but when it comes to DxD, I want them to just get it on so we can move on with the rest of the show.
Yeah. Basically.
Because we spend so much time with, what's his face? I'm trying to remember his name right now.
Is it like Iki something?
No, that's not it. It's... I can't remember. Anyway, we spend so much time with him going on about his blue balls, and I'm just like... it's like you have all these girls that want to sleep with you. If you want to sleep with them that bad, just do it. Shut up, and let's go back to fighting the dudes that are also birds, but also gods, and I can't tell, but you guys should fight some more.
Yeah.
I know that's ridiculous, me coming into a harem anime with that kind of expectation.
Well, I feel like that specific harem anime sort of builds that expectation on itself, in that it tries to make those fight scenes and the story happen while being a harem.
Well, I mean, the story is so cheesy and stupid, but I just love it anyway, for no good reason. It's like, yeah, I'm totally into this.
It's like, yeah, you're totally into this, but secretly you don't know why.
I just have very mixed feelings about it, I guess, is the conclusion that we should draw for about TXD.
Yeah.
Do you guys play, do you guys have any favorite, horror video games, or do you guys play any of those?
I personally really like Dead Space, and I know it gets a lot of hate and heat on a lot of different things.
Well, I mean, after Dead Space 3, it's kind of asking for it.
Yeah. Well, I like the original Dead Space.
Okay.
The game itself, the other games in the series didn't they didn't have the magic for me that the first one did, where I genuinely was like starting to panic a little when I turned corners and shooting every corpse I came by because it's a corpse.
Right.
And I'm kind of sad that they caved into a little bit of demands to where they're like, you need to make this game not as scary. I was like, make it scarier. I want it scarier.
Yeah, I feel like by Dead Space 3 it just turned into, another dude bro shooter.
Yeah.
I've not played Dead Space. I'm not gonna lie to you. Mostly because I just haven't gotten around to it. I've played like a demo of Dead Space 3 and Dead Space 2, and I've watched an LP of all. I've watched Let's Plays of all of them, and I really liked what I saw with 1 and 2, and then when it got to 3, and I saw it, and then I saw all the microtransactions and all sorts of bullshit, I'm like, I just don't want any part of that. What about you, Mark? Are you into horror games?
Yeah, there's one that I preferably like that I don't know if you'd consider it horror or not. It's the Metro series, but that...
Metro? Like Metro 2033?
Yep, Metro 2033 and Last Light.
Oh, good sir. We should be the best of friends now. Nobody I ever talked to has ever played these games, and I'm just like, you have not yet lived. I love Metro, and I will say that Metro 2033 I think more than Metro Last Light, but Metro Last Light as well, definitely. Yeah. I would put them in the horror category because while horror isn't, being horror in the traditional sense isn't their overarching theme. The whole point is to make you afraid and alone. It's very atmospheric when you are trudging through the underground of post-apocalyptic Moscow.
Yeah.
And you really do feel like the world has just ended. And not just like with... I feel like it goes beyond stuff like Fallout, which I love Fallout, don't get me wrong, and other post-apocalyptic games, and takes it a step further and really makes you feel the disparity that comes with being the last of mankind.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
From the moment I started playing it, I'm like, I watched some of it like way early, like back in 2010 or whenever it really came out and started to get popular. I loved it just for the sense of, because me personally, I like post-apocalyptic horror because I look at it this way: if you don't know what's out there, that always causes fear, and it will never the fear of the unknown is what I love, and that's what this game really plays on.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I think that fear of the unknown, for me at least, is the best type of horror, is the scariest type of horror, because you can show me as many boogeyman as you can render, but if you can create a grim, depressing atmosphere and give me a feeling of
what's going to happen next.
Right, if you make me feel like I'm not safe, if you just make me feel like I'm this huge badass that can kill anything, I'm not going to be worried. But if you make me feel alone, if you make me feel like I'm not safe, and if you make me feel uncertain as to what there is in my surroundings and what's coming next, that is more frightening than anything you can show me, because the things that you can imagine in your head are far more frightening than what somebody else could make for you.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
I kind of have this opinion when it comes to horror in general, and I think it translates over to anime and games very well, is really jump scares. I think most horror relies too much on jump scares, and they think that if they can shock you for a second, then that's horror. How you were talking about feeling truly alone and feeling the depravity and the feelings like that, I believe that's what true horror is about. And I think that's one thing that we do very bad in movies, and even some anime I've seen are guilty of. I don't think you can actually call yourself horror if all you are jump scares, because that's more thriller, and that's more just trying to shock you with a loud noise and flashing image than it is about truly instilling fear.
Right, and I think that jump scares and I think that shock value has its place in the medium, but I think that it's gotten to a point where it's become overused and abused, and it generally, if you see it, if you have a game or you have a movie or anything that has jump scares in it, that's usually the only trick they've got in their bag. I'm not saying that that's always the case. I think that there are great examples of horror media that have included jump scares, that haven't relied on them and haven't used them heavily, and have other means of making you feel afraid, that have used them to good effect. But I feel like those are very few and far between, and I think for the most part, we as an audience are kind of sick and tired of it. It's kind of an old hat. We've seen it before. We know, we kind of half expect it at this point. So, and we won't thank you for it. So, I think that's best to avoid that for the most part.
I feel like jump scares just really, like, once you've seen it the first time, you know it's becoming like you come with a expectancy of, yeah, it's gonna come again, and then it eventually degrades from there.
Right, it kind of feels like whenever it shows up for the first time in the movie or whatever, it's like it just becomes like your expectations go into it just immediately drop. You're like, oh, it's going to be one of these. I feel like video games are actually the best medium for horror, and I think the reason why is because, especially first-person horror games, it gives you agency. It makes you feel like you are the person who's experienced this, and you're not just witnessing somebody else's experiences on a screen. Which is very hard to pull off, but I think that games like Amnesia and like Penumbra pull it off very well. And I think that games like Metro pull it off really well. Do you have the DLC for Last Light?
No, I don't. I recently just bought it for myself with the Redux, but I mean, I don't have the DLC for it, but I should get it.
Well, if you ever get the DLC, there is there's one DLC pack that I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's kind of based off an old game called Stalker. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yes, I have. I've heard of Stalker.
But it's sort of based off of that, mostly because the people who made Metro are actually originally from the Stalker team. But it's kind of based on that, and you spend your time as a stalker exploring the Great Library. And I think that that is really great for making you feel... it makes you really tense and nervous because you're alone exploring this library and you're exploring the surface. And I think that for me, at least, if you ever get a chance to play it, for me, at least, it was much more. There's a lot more tension in it than in the main game of Metro. And so, if you're looking for something that's really going to keep you on the edge of your seat, that's a good one. You said you've heard of Stalker?
Yes, I have, and
we really are going to get along very well because nobody has heard of these games. Have you played any of the Stalker games?
No, but I did look into it for a little bit, and I'm like, okay, this should be a game that I should get, but I'm preoccupied at the moment with the games that I do have. Right.
I would recommend that if you liked the Metro games, I would wholly recommend that you play Stalker, because the Metro games are kind of based on Stalker. There are three of them: Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, and Call of Pripyat. In chronological order, it goes Clear Sky, Chernobyl, and then Pripyat. But I would recommend playing Shadow of Chernobyl first, then play Pripyat, and don't ever play Clear Sky. because they kind of tried to experiment with Clear Sky and tried some new things, and it gets absurd. Like, they introduced bullet drop in Clear Sky, and so if you want to actually shoot anybody who isn't literally right in front of you, you need a sniper rifle. And it gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend ever playing Clear Sky. But Shadow of Chernobyl is wonderful. Get it and install the Oblivion Lost mod. And after you've played that, play Pripyat, and I guarantee you will love them both. I think you'll probably like Chernobyl the best. That was my favorite. And I think that I feel like these are, I would actually call Shadow of Chernobyl one of my favorite horror games. While it's not explicitly a horror game, it has the same feeling and atmosphere as Metro 2033 does. But I think that it handles it in a slightly different way, and honestly, I think it handles it in a slightly better way. And the whole experience of Stalker is very oppressive. It's not something that I can quantify easily, but I feel like it created the same sort of feelings of being alone and afraid. And there are actually these areas in Stalker called laboratories that you will eventually have to go into to complete the main quest line. And I can tell you that I never wanted to go in one of those, and I never want to go in one of them again. Not because they're badly designed, but because they scared the piss out of me. And I think that was wonderful. I loved it, and I was just the whole time I was in there, I'm like, I can't wait to get what I'm here for and leave. I think that overall, my favorite horror game across the board that I think pretty much everybody has played is Silent Hill 2.
Yeah. And
I'm really sad with the direction that Konami has taken. I know that in the last podcast I took the time to bash Konami, and I'm going to do it again. And you can expect this to be a running theme. But I am very sad about the direction that Konami has taken, because I absolutely love Silent Hill. I actually was very cynical about Silent Hills, so I wasn't too sad about it being canceled, because the last few Silent Hill games I haven't been impressed with. Basically, to me, after Silent Hill 4, Silent Hill has just been dead to me. And honestly, I'm happy with it staying that way, because the Konami of today is not the Konami that I want to handle
Konami used franchises. To be. Yeah, I remember playing Silent Hill 2, and I totally loved it, and it was an amazing game. I can barely remember...
Yeah, I feel like
I can barely remember what I was playing, but I remember it being like, oh shit, right. I want to get out of this town as soon as possible.
Right. I absolutely loved it. I feel like it was one of the first games to really get the oppressive atmosphere right. There is no big bad guy in Silent Hill 2, and there is no, and like even the monsters aren't even the main attraction. It's the town itself. Like the very town is what is out to get you, and it's really fucked up, and it's really wonderful because of that. And it scared the crap out of me when I first played it, and I still love it. And I actually remember there's one part in the apartment buildings that you go into. There's this long hallway that I affectionately refer to as the overly dark hallway of doom, and it just scared the crap out of me every time I had to traverse that. One of my friends came over one time several years ago to play it, and not to play it, he was just there to hang out. He's like, hey man, can I try this game? I'm like, sure. And so he's hanging out with me and one of my other friends, and so we decide that we're going to go off and get some snacks while he's still playing, and the lights are off, it's dark and stuff, and we get in there and are rummaging through the fridge, and we hear him start screaming in the other room. And it was just the greatest thing ever. And so I have a great fondness for it.
Here's a question for you guys. What makes a horror anything for you? Would it be the atmosphere it's put into, or the characters and the people surrounding you that make it a horror?
Well, I think it can be either or. I think that the best ones have both. But I think that for me at least, first and foremost, if you're going to have nothing else, you need to have the atmosphere. Because it's what I was talking about earlier, and what you mentioned was the fear of the unknown. And I feel like atmosphere breeds that better than anything else. If you can create a dark, depressing, grim, and lonely atmosphere, and just let me scare myself, I think that will be better than anything that you can use to try to scare me.
Yeah.
I think that it requires all of those elements to really make a good horror, but it requires pacing, whether it be a show, a game, anything. Is to make horror really good, I think you've got to be able to have the correct pacing of knowing when is the time to genuinely scare someone and when is the time to build up to the scare. Because everyone knows scares are better if you've let them refine themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that this is. I think this goes against conventional wisdom to some degree. But I think the scariest horror games are the ones in which you spend the least time looking at the monster. Because I feel like the more you can see the monsters and the big bads and see what's going on, the more you will come to understand them. And we're not really afraid of things that we understand. They become more humanized, or maybe not necessarily human, but rather they become more recognizable and easier to deal with in that regard. But if we can't comprehend this thing in any way, shape, or form, that's terrifying, because we as humans have a natural desire to understand everything, the entire world around us. We have created an entire culture of wanting to know more, and creating space programs and research centers that their only goal is to understand more about the world around us. And so we have that natural desire, and I think when something comes in and just says, no, there is no way for you to possibly comprehend this, we just can't deal with that. And I think that's why stuff like Lovecraftian horror works so well.
I was about to bring up Lovecraftian, actually, as you were going on. Lovecraftian horror is probably... I actually haven't gotten into it until recently. Really, with Bloodborne was when I really started to hear a lot about it. And I of course, knew about Cthulhu, and, but Lovecraftian horror has quickly become probably my favorite genre of horror, and I would love to see more animes sort of follow a similar Lovecraftian type of horror.
Right, and I really think that things that kind of build upon the works of Lovecraft, or at least adopt his style of writing, his style of, I guess, horror, for lack of a better term. I think that those can be infinitely more interesting than some of the more standard tropes that we're used to. And I think Bloodborne, if you haven't played it, you might not think that's, a horror game, but it is. It's very much a Lovecraftian horror game. And I don't want to spoil it. There's no way I can really talk about that without spoiling it. But if you play the game, if you get more and more into the game, by the end of it, you will be like, what the fuck did I just play? You will have no idea what's going on, and you will be... It will be absolutely wonderful.
Well, the makers of Dark Souls had a pretty good grasp on how to make the player not understand a single thing that's happening in the story. So.
Yeah, I know.
It was perfect for that type of horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you guys... I also have a soft spot for horror movies. My favorite, and I feel like this is an unpopular opinion. I could be wrong, but I feel like most people don't like this movie. But my favorite horror movie is The Blair Witch Project.
I actually loved the way that the camera work was, and the style of it is really great. Another movie that I really liked, and it gets so much hate, but was the Cloverfield monster movie.
Yeah.
Because of how the style, while irritating, was very consistent, and it made it feel more real to an extent, in my opinion.
I think Cloverfield would have really benefited off of, and if they didn't expose the monster, that would have been that would have made that movie for me.
I agree with you. I agree with you to some extent. On one level, I feel like if they hadn't, just the way that movie was set up, I don't feel like it would have worked. But even though that they did, I also feel like it still didn't work. That being said, I liked Cloverfield. I did. And I did find it interesting as a movie. I didn't find it frightening, but I did find it interesting. But I overall did not feel that it worked very well. I feel like it was something that was great in theory. It was basically taking the Godzilla, kaiju monster concept and turning it into more of a found footage horror movie. Or at least that's what it seemed like it was trying to do. And I feel like it wasn't handled as well as it could have been. But I think it was a great concept.
There was another movie that I really enjoyed. It's really, really old. It's about cannibals in the rain. That these researchers went out into the rainforest and they took footage of cannibals out in the Amazon, and they lived with them and they ate with them, and that was a really good found footage type movie that I really enjoyed.
That sounds terrifying.
It was. I went back and watched it, and it was amazingly terrifying for like a '60s movie or whatever when it came out.
Right. Yeah, that sounds horrible. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people aren't very fond of the found footage genre, and I think that in a lot of ways, people have tried to capitalize off the success of the Blair Witch Project, and it hasn't really gone very well. But I absolutely loved the Blair Witch Project because it felt very genuine to me. Like, the whole movie, if you didn't know, is unscripted. All the dialogue is completely ad-libbed. The actors made that up on their own. And they actually did drop these actors off in the middle of the woods for like 3 days. And let them do all the filming on their own.
I found the movie that I was looking for.
Sorry, go ahead.
It was called Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
I feel like I am morbidly curious about this movie, but at the same time, I kind of don't want to watch it.
I think you should watch it just if you want to look at like a 1960s to like 1980s type found footage horror film. Because
I may give it a try.
Yeah, they literally made people believe that this actually happened, and they went out into the rainforest. They made search parties go out and look into the rainforest to find these people. That's how believable it was.
If that's one thing the public is gullible.
Hey, marketing. Yeah. Marketing is good for stuff. They did the same thing with the Blair Witch Project. There was like all sorts of... there was like a website and all sorts of various like news articles and stuff like that made it seem like the Blair Witch Project was a documentary, when in fact it is entirely fictional. But it remains one of my favorites. Something that isn't found footage and that I think that is kind of a horror classic that I absolutely adore is Alien.
That was an amazing movie.
I would consider that sci-fi mixed with horror.
I think the xenomorphs are pretty fucking scary, and I think that the first movie was very much a horror movie. I think the second one much less so. They actually made a game recently called Alien Isolation, which was a first-person horror game in the vein of Amnesia: The Dark Descent, set in the Alien universe, and that was absolutely a brilliant game. But yeah, I feel like there are so many horror movies, but so few of them I feel really get it right. I feel like almost everyone that I see these days are just they come off as really cheesy, and I like them. I do. I'll admit I like cheesy, over-the-top horror movies, but I don't find them frightening. I think they are good popcorn movies, and that is movies that you can just turn off your brain and sit down on a Saturday night with your significant other or some friends and have a good time just watching something stupid.
Paranormal Activity.
Funny you should mention that. I was about to bring that up. Yeah, everybody loves Paranormal Activity. I like it, but I don't feel like it. I don't think it's scary. I really don't. I think it's just a bunch of people in a house screaming for a bit while furniture flies around.
What is the new movie that they have that's about demon possession? That God.
I don't know. They all have the same title.
The Last Exorcism.
It's always like
maybe, but there's just they're all of them in that genre. I go back to my argument about jump scares. Is that's what really makes those movies terrible? Is that's what they rely on?
Right.
Jump scares are their bread and butter, and they have they have nothing else.
Yeah. I don't really feel like I don't really feel like it. I don't feel like most mainstream horror movies really pull off what they're going for. They're good fun, but I don't think that they quite achieve their goal, which sucks. It really does. But in another way, it makes the few really good horror movies that come up really, pretty much like gems in their own right. They're like these hidden treasures that you have to dig up and find, and when they come along, you just get really excited. And in some ways, I guess only having so many of them keeps us from getting bored of those type of movies, which is in a way a good thing. All things in moderation.
I actually have a system I like to do to test whether or not a horror movie I view is good. Did it still scare me when I turned the volume off? Because so many horror movies rely on just the loud, aspect of loud jump scares or loud noises that make you jump.
Right.
And if you turn them on mute half the time, they just look comical. But if a movie doesn't make me laugh while turning off the volume, if it genuinely still creeps me out, then I'm like, that's a pretty good horror movie.
I just imagine like a horror movie set to silent film music. And it was wonderful.
But yeah, that's a test I like to personally do, is because I hate jump scares, and I think one of the reasons I hate them so much is they always get me. And
so you just hold a grudge against them.
Yes, because it feels to me like they didn't work for that scare on me. Like, you didn't work for that scare. You didn't earn it. So therefore I hate you.
You just sound like a kid whose brother or sister jumped out from behind the corner and was like, I scared you, and you're like, no, I wasn't scared.
That's basically how I am.
Which is wonderful. Well, we're going to wrap up here very, very shortly. But before we do, I would like to talk very briefly about Halloween. Because Halloween, this episode's going to be airing on Halloween. Halloween is very close, very soon, as of the time of recording. And I absolutely adore Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. I love it. And I would trade Christmas for it any day. And so, to start off with, I want to complain about something. And that is, I don't know if they do this where you guys live, but where I live and everywhere that I've ever lived, they always do Halloween on a different night than Halloween, which I find really weird.
Yeah, trick-or-treating is normally done Fridays instead of Saturdays, or usually the day before, or where I live, and it is very irritating. Because of that, I got tricked into
where I live.
Taking my little sister trick-or-treating this year.
Actually, where I live, it's always been on the day. No matter where I've gone to, even if it's on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, it's always been. We've always gone out and trick-or-treated until midnight, almost 1 o'clock in the morning, until people decided they wanted to stop.
See, that's what it was like when I was a kid. when I was a little kid, we would start at like 6 p.m. and we would go from neighborhood to neighborhood, and on Halloween night, and just get a ton of candy until somewhere between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. when everybody, just stopped giving out candy. And it was wonderful, and I absolutely loved it. But now, Halloween, at least where I live, is never on the day of Halloween. Like, this year, Halloween officially, where I live, is tomorrow, rather than Saturday. Today's Thursday, by the way, listeners.
Yeah.
Not for you, but for us it is. So Halloween is on Friday, and I find that very odd. And it's during the daytime. And to be fair, I get the whole during the daytime thing. I get that is in many ways a lot safer, and that's okay. I perfectly understand that. But it's like Halloween's on a weekend this year, so why are we doing this on a Friday?
Oh, I remember one year going out trick-or-treating, and I was with my buddy, and we were going around to these houses, and these people had set up a little, like, haunted house outside their front door, and they had their kids all dressed up in, like, zombie costumes or whatever, and when we went up to the house, and one of the girls pulled me over to a table, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to dine with me? Do you want to have a tea party with me?" And then she literally tells me to run, and I book it down the street as fast as I possibly can. Like, I did not stop running until she told me to stop.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
That sounds wonderful, actually. I've actually seen people do stuff like that. Not quite that elaborate, but I've seen where people will, like, dress up as like a scarecrow and stuff and sit on their front porch with like a bowl of candy in their lap, and they will look just like a scarecrow. You won't know that it's an actual person because they won't be moving. And when you go get some candy, they'll grab you. Like, that used to scare the piss out of me when I was a kid. Yeah, I absolutely love Halloween. Partly because, aside from like conventions and stuff, it's the only time of the year that I get to dress up where people aren't like, "Why the fuck are you dressing that way?"
Yeah,
because,
Halloween, great day for cosplayers. It's just,
because I love to get in the costume. I do, and I like to get in the character, and I like cosplaying, and I like just generally dressing up in various costumes. So, do you guys still go trick or treating?
No, I don't have. I'm tricked this year. I was tricked into taking my little sister because I remembered Halloween is Saturday. So my mother asked me to babysit Friday. I was like, oh, sure, yeah. And she's like, by the way, you have to take her trick-or-treating. After I agreed, and my little sister knows I'm coming, so I can't disappoint her.
Right.
You go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. That's fine.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually thought about it this year, but then again, I'm like, what enjoyment do I get out of me personally just getting candy from other people when I personally can go out and buy it myself?
I get a ton of enjoyment out of it. Hey, it's free candy.
It is free candy, but I'm like, I look at it this way. I'm like, I basically look almost like the creepy old man coming up to the door, like, "Oh, can you give me some candy, please? I'd like free candy."
Even though, like, I'm in my 20s and I'm by no means old or even middle aged, I do get the same feeling, which is why I have a son who I can take trick or treating and then eat all of his candy.
Yeah.
Parent of the year.
Which is wonderful. Which half the time, like, I've noticed, I don't know why, this is a little weird, but half the time when I do take them trick-or-treating, the people who are giving out candy are like, "Hey, do you want some candy?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want some candy." And so I get candy too. And so this is why you have kids.
What's the weirdest thing you've gotten while trick-or-treating?
There is no other reason.
No, I meant, like, what's the weirdest thing you've got while trick-or-treating? When I went to go...
A razor blade.
Really? Because honestly, when I went to go trick-or-treating one year, I got a can of Mountain Dew, and I came back to the same house, and he just almost plopped the bag of ramen in my bag. I'm like, what are you doing?
You might have went to my house, to be honest. But actually, yeah, one year I got a razor blade and an apple because there was some crazy person giving out razor blades and apples that year.
That is terrifying.
They got arrested, so it's cool.
Yeah, I would imagine that they should get arrested for that. Yeah, that's really weird. I don't have a good story like that. Like, the weirdest thing that I've ever got at Halloween is I've gotten those lollipops. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're lollipops and they have like a scorpion inside, like an actual scorpion. It's like the stinger removed and everything. And it was pretty good.
Did you eat the scorpion? Because I would have, because they're kind of delicious.
I did eat the scorpion, and it tastes like uncooked rice.
I like uncooked rice.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Like, if you've ever eaten, like, uncooked brown rice, that's what scorpions taste like.
Might have to go out and
I would
find
actually go on my way to buy one.
Trick-or-treating for me is kind of lost its meaning in my towns, because nobody ever does it anymore, and it's like, do I want to go out and do it by myself?
Yeah, I get that. A lot of people around here don't do it anymore either, and that really bugs me because I love Halloween. Everybody just skips straight to Christmas, and I just want to punch them all in the face.
Me too.
If you're listening right now and you have a Christmas tree in your house, you are wrong, sir. You are wrong. That is an abomination unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I know a few families that have Christmas trees all year round because they just don't want to take them down because it's that much of a hassle.
You know, I used to, until my wife took it down, I used to do a similar thing. I have, like, you've seen like those paper skeletons that you can tape to doors and stuff? I had one of those, and I taped him to my door for Halloween, and I just never took him down. I just kept him up for years, and I named him Skeleton Bro, and on Christmas I would tape a Santa hat to him.
That kind of reminds me of my family. We have goose decoys sitting out on our front lawn, and every year for every holiday, we'll put something like decorative on them. For this year, we put like little masks on them. For Halloween, we're probably gonna, not for Halloween, but for Thanksgiving, we're gonna put little pilgrim hats on them and stuff like that.
That's adorable. That's wonderful. Yeah, I hate when people skip over Halloween because it's such a cheesy holiday. It's so stupid, but I just love it so much because of how cheesy and dorky it is.
Yeah.
And I love getting dressed up, and I love covering my house in cobwebs and putting tombstones in the yard and all this other stuff. That isn't scary at all. It's just dumb and dorky, but I just, you know, my heart just swells with joy at the sight of it.
I honestly...
I think Halloween's good for us as a society because it's sort of... I would guess it sort of takes some of the horror out of death. Like, it's meant to be horror, but Halloween's not really all that scary.
Yeah.
So I think it lets us add a little bit of a light theme on otherwise a pretty dark and grim subject.
Yeah, possibly.
That brings me to a question I've been kind of wanting to ask here for a little while. Is like, do you think Halloween's kind of degraded from when let's say when we were younger and we kind of looked at it like, oh, it's scary, but now it's kind of leaning towards like, oh, it's just kind of being cutesy and stuff like that?
I actually have two answers for that. The first being that I feel like it is degraded in the sense that I feel like a lot less people are celebrating it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I'm not very happy about it. At least where I live, that seems to be the case. But the second answer I would give is it hasn't degraded, but it has changed. When I was a kid, walking along the street in the middle of the night with all these other people around in all these costumes and people with quote unquote scary decorations. All over their front porch and everything. That used to kind of creep me out and scare me when I was little. Yeah, and as an adult, I don't get that. But at the same time, that's okay, because I still love those things. They aren't scary for me anymore, but I still find them delightful. but as far as getting my scares in, I feel more mature and adult mediums for that kind of experience, and that would be stuff like horror games and movies and anime and stuff like that, and even going to like haunted houses and stuff like that, which I don't find to be scary, but I find like they're trying so hard to be scary but failing so miserably that I just have a great time.
I actually, for 2 years, I worked in a haunted mansion, and it was a really fun experience, and I would have done it more if the owners of said haunted mansion would have stopped being pretty bad business owners and treating employees badly. But besides that point, you get some people like you that they're honestly my favorite people, that they don't get scared, and but you can tell that they enjoy it. But they'll help you try and scare other people.
Yeah, that's the best, isn't it?
One story this is my all-time favorite story is there was a husband and a wife, and I'm pretty sure I was the ultimate cause of their divorce. Not if they're divorced, but pretty sure after this. I went up and tapped the husband on the shoulder, and the wife had her hands behind her back and was holding her husband's hands as she's walking through. He swapped places with me. I followed her around for about 5 minutes, and then she finally turned around and she's like, "Are you scared too?" And I was like, "Nah." And she ran so fast.
That's the greatest thing ever.
That's not the best part of the story. The husband, throughout the course of the haunted house, took about 45 minutes to, and about 50 if you were going slow. He swapped places with me 3 times. I followed that woman through the entire house and traumatized her.
That's wonderful.
It was a really enjoyable experience, and I think after she got done being mad at her husband, she could learn to laugh about it. But
yeah. That's the greatest thing ever. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's made my day. I have this big stupid smile on my face now.
I do too.
Yeah, whenever I go through haunted houses, I usually laugh, and they don't like. I find that some haunted houses really don't like that. They want you to be quiet the whole time. I guess because it ruins the experience for other people. But for me, I usually laugh because I'm having such a good time. I'm not trying to be mean toward anybody who's working there and laughing at them. I'm just laughing because I am enjoying it so much. But I remember one time, I went in a haunted house with my parents, and I think my girlfriend at the time, and my girlfriend was behind me, and my mother was in front of me, and they make you put your hands on the shoulders of the person in front of you so you don't get lost. And so we're going through here, my mother is scared shitless the whole time. Like, seriously, I can feel her shaking. and it's completely dark. You can't see anything in there except for just little lights here and there. And I'm laughing the whole time because I'm having a great time. And then all of a sudden we get halfway through and I just stop laughing and I let go of her and I stop. And she freaks out like, oh my god, where are you? and she starts turning around. She lets go of my dad, who's in front of her, and starts turning in circles trying to find me. And he's like, "What's wrong?" And everybody in the front of the line just starts freaking out, and everybody just turns into chaos and turmoil. It was great. I had a great time. And then when she turned around again, because I could sort of make out which way she was facing. When she turned around again, I walked up and grabbed her shoulders, and she screamed. And so that was wonderful. And a similar thing happened. We went to Ripley. It was actually Ripley's, believe it or not, not museum, but they actually have a haunted house in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I went there with 2 of my friends and my parents when I was a few years. It's been about maybe 4 years now, but I went there, and we went in the haunted house, and we had like another group that was with us, and so we all had to do the conga line thing, where you're putting your hands on the shoulders of the person in front of you. So like all my family, like my friends are directly behind me. My parents are behind them, and so are this like old couple. Right? And in front of me is this dude. I have no idea who this guy is. I've never met him before. But he's apparently like me and doesn't get scared in haunted houses. And so we had a good time. So like we're going through there, and everybody else is freaking out the whole time. And he and I are having like a good time of it. And we get toward the end of the haunted house, and you have to go through this prison area, right? And there's this dude in one of the cells, and he's like violently shaking the cell door and just beating on it, trying to get out. And he has like this chainsaw and everything, and he's just desperately trying to get out of there, and he can't. And so you move on past there and everything, and after about one more area, you hear like the door just bust open, and like he like starts screaming and revs up his chainsaw and starts chasing our little conga line through the haunted house. And what's great is this is at the very end of the haunted house, and you actually have to take an elevator to get out of it, and there's this long hallway. There's this door, and then there's a long hallway, and at the end of the hallway is the elevator, and here comes the dude with the chainsaw running, like sprinting at us with a chainsaw with our little conga line, and it's like really dark and stuff, and everybody else you can see like the sign for the elevator, and everybody's like, go, 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 and we're like, we can't find the door. Of course we knew where the door was, but we just couldn't find the door, and so everybody breaks formation, breaks up the conga line, and the like chainsaw dude starts chasing them around the room. And all the while, like, me and this guy were just like, whatever, and we just walked to the elevator.
I had that happen, but with a corn maze, and they chase you all the way to the end of the corn maze, and me and my friends were booking it as fast as he can. I stop, turn around, look at the guy, and he's dumbfounded because he still thinks people are running, and I'm like, hello? Hello?
Hello? Yeah, that's good fun. Have you ever heard of Busch Gardens? It's a theme park.
Busch Gardens, yes, I have. Isn't that on?
There is. There's one in Tampa, Florida, and there's one in Williamsburg, Virginia. And the Williamsburg one is the one that I really like, and I go there all the time. I like going there during their Halloween event. I can't remember what they call it. Hallow Scream, I think is what they call it. It's good fun, and they like
Scare
around.
ones.
Yeah, and once it gets dark, they have like haunted houses and stuff like most places do, but they take it a step further, which is what I really like. They turn the whole park into a haunted house. Like
I love it when amusement parks can do that. That makes it so much fun.
I know, right? It's so cool. And the first time I went there, they had like little paths that you could take that weren't haunted, quote unquote, so you could get around all the scary stuff if you didn't want to get involved with that. But they took that out, and I'm like, oh yes. And so like the whole park is filled with fog. You can't see anything, and there are just people all around you, and it's just you like there's zero visibility there. And there's like these werewolves that hide in bushes and will jump out and grab you, and these dudes with chainsaws that will chase you through the park, and it's great. And I remember I went there with my parents again. I know all these stories involve my parents. I'm not entirely sure why, because I actually have been an adult for most of these stories and have gone and could have gone on my own, but we decided to vacation together. But I was there with my parents, right? And so I've noticed that they do this thing, like the people who are there to scare you, they will do this thing where they kind of size you up to kind of tell whether or not you're going to be scared. I've kind of learned what to do to kind of give off the appearance that they're not going to scare me, so they usually don't bother me. But what ended up happening, my dad and I and my mother were all walking along, and it's really, really foggy, and there's some we hear a chainsaw rev up around us, and instead of coming for either my dad or myself, the chainsaw dude runs after my mother, and instead of just running away, she grabs my dad and throws him at the guy. and so me and chainsaw guy and my dad are all just stood there like, the fuck? And my mom's just sprinting off in the other direction.
That's when I would have high-fived the guy and been like, yeah,
that was pretty great. But I thought it was hilarious. Like, okay, you can die, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
Halloween, don't ever change. I love you so much.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about?
I have one more story from where I worked in the haunted house. There was a group of teenage girls. When I say teenage, I don't mean 16, 17. I mean they look 13 to 15.
Right.
They were doing the huddled conga line formation, which wasn't mandatory in this haunted house, by the way. And I jumped around the corner and scared one of them. They fell down like dominoes, screaming in the most high-pitched squeals, but they terrified the drunk man behind them, which might or might not have been their father.
That's like startling a witch. You don't want to do that.
He yells, "Shit, fuck, fire," and runs into a wall, almost knocking himself out.
Oh.
It sounds like this was a fun job. Didn't somebody punch you in the face during this?
Yes, I got punched in the face a couple times, but they were all worth it.
That's great. Was it intentional punching you in the face, or was it just purely reactionary?
It was reactionary, and the funny thing is, it was all girls. None of the big macho boyfriends with their girlfriends would punch me. It was always the girlfriends.
I mean, I guess that's one way to deal with your fears. You just punch them in the face until they go away.
Yeah, well, one part was this big macho guy, you could tell he works out a lot. But he was like, "Don't worry, babe, I'll protect you." And I popped out in front of them. He held her and like darted behind her really quick, and she punched me in the face. And then I was like, maybe she should be protecting you.
Yeah. That's great. All right. Well, with that, I think that we are going to wrap up for today. And so, well, that will do it for this episode of the JustDubs cast. If you've enjoyed what you heard, you can catch us on the second Saturday. I know we're a little late this month, but on the second Saturday of every month over at the JustDubs Online official YouTube channel. You can also find us on justdubsonline.net. You should visit us online for editorials on Japanese life and culture, anime and manga news, video game news, and much more. I myself write various articles regarding Japanese culture, Japanese history, and myself and Heisengard handle video game news. VK201 also writes media articles, and Mark Denn is also involved in news and media, as is Dead Seed, and I'm going to quit listing people now. And if none of that sounds quite like your cup of tea, you can always stream and download hundreds of your favorite English dubbed anime, visit our community forums, or participate in our monthly games and various club activities such as our Spooktober elimination game, Flaming Pumpkin game, the Pumpkin Carving Contest, Costume Contest, and Review Contest that we've had for this month. And if you haven't had a chance to participate in those, I would like to apologize for not getting the word out on the podcast sooner, but we do usually have various contests surrounding every major holiday, so I would invite you to check back very, very soon, as we will likely have another contest and multiple foreign games in the very, very near future.
Do we have anything coming up?
Do we have anything coming up at the moment?
That we know of at the moment?
Not that I can think of, if I'm being honest. Not that I can think of at the moment, but by the time that the November podcast airs, we will probably have some things to announce. So keep an eye out for that. You can also follow us online at our Twitter page, which is at JustDubs Online, or our Facebook page, which is also JustDubs Online. and we will be announcing any contests and anything like that we have on our social media. You can find myself, Mark Den, Znelson, and a ever-growing community over at JustDubsOnline.net. I've been your host, VegaMan8910. Thank you so much for listening, and for myself and everyone at JustDubs Online, have a happy Halloween, and goodbye.